My girlfriend texted, "I want an open relationship, but only for me." I said, "Sounds fair," then closed my wallet, my apartment, and my heart. She couldn't reach me for 5 days, and what happened next shocked everyone. Subscribe to the channel and like the video to see more stories like this. When I read that text message from Sarah at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, something inside me just died. 3 years of what I thought was love, reduced to, "I think we should open our relationship, but only on my side." You understand, right, babe? I need to explore myself. The audacity was breathtaking, but instead of exploding like she probably expected, I felt this strange calm wash over me. I typed back 2 words that would change everything. "Sounds fair." Let me back up a bit. Sarah and I had been together since college, 3 beautiful years that I thought were leading somewhere permanent. She was the kind of girl who could light up a room just by walking in, with this infectious laugh that made everyone fall in love with her energy. I was completely smitten, maybe even blind to the signs that were probably there all along. I'm a software engineer, working remotely for a tech company in San Francisco while living in a nice apartment downtown that I've been paying for completely. Sarah worked part-time at a boutique, more for fun than necessity, since I covered rent, groceries, utilities, even her car payments. She always said she was grateful, always promised she'd pay me back when her career took off. I never minded. I thought that's what you do for someone you love. The past few months, though, things had been different. She started going out more with her girlfriends, coming home later, being secretive about her phone. When I'd ask about her day, her answers got shorter and more vague. "Just work stuff, babe. Nothing interesting happened. You worry too much." Last month, she started talking about personal growth and finding herself. She'd mention articles she'd read about relationships being too restrictive and how modern love shouldn't have boundaries. I thought it was just a phase, maybe some new friend filling her head with ideas. I never imagined it would lead to this. But there I was, staring at her text message, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. The message was so casual, so matter-of-fact, like she was asking me to pick up milk from the store. "I think we should open our relationship, but only on my side." Not even a phone call, not even a face-to-face conversation, just a text. My first instinct was to call her immediately, to ask if she was serious, to fight for what we had. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she phrased it. Not our relationship, but only on my side. Like I was just supposed to sit there and wait while she had her fun with other guys. Like I was some kind of backup plan. Instead, I sat there for about 20 minutes, just thinking. And that's when the strangest thing happened. I started to feel grateful. Grateful that she'd shown me exactly who she was before I wasted any more years on her. Grateful that she'd been so bold about her selfishness that there was no room for misinterpretation. So I texted back, "Sounds fair." Her response came within seconds. "OMG, really? You're the best. I knew you'd understand. This is going to be so good for us. I promise." I stared at those words until they blurred. She was excited. Actually excited that she could go mess around with other guys while keeping me as her safe, stable option. The audacity was almost impressive. That's when I made my decision. If Sarah wanted an open relationship, she was going to get exactly what she asked for, just not in the way she expected. The next morning, I woke up with the clearest head I'd had in months. Sarah had stayed out all night, probably celebrating her newfound freedom with whoever had been putting these ideas in her head. I didn't even bother texting to ask where she was. Instead, I started making some very important phone calls. First call was to my bank. "I need to remove someone from my accounts," I told them. Sarah had access to my checking account for emergencies, and her name was on several of my credit cards. "Can you walk me through the process?" Within an hour, every shared financial connection we had was severed. Clean cuts, no drama, just business. Second call was to my landlord, Mrs. Peterson. She'd always liked me. I paid rent early every month and never caused any trouble. "Hey, Mrs. Peterson, I need to discuss the lease situation. My girlfriend won't be staying here much longer, and I want to make sure everything's in order." She was understanding, probably relieved that there wouldn't be any messy breakup drama affecting her property. Third call was to my buddy Marcus, who worked at a high-end storage facility. "I need to store some stuff for a few days, maybe a week. Can you help me out?" Marcus didn't ask questions. That's why he's a good friend. By noon, I was systematically going through the apartment, boxing up everything that belonged to Sarah. Her clothes, her books, her decorative pillows that I'd always secretly hated. Her collection of scented candles that made the place smell like a Bath and Body Works exploded. Everything went into boxes, neat and organized, like I was packing for a move. I wasn't angry. That's the weird part. I felt eerily calm, almost methodical. Maybe this is what clarity feels like when you finally stop lying to yourself about someone. Sarah came home around 2 p.m., practically glowing. She was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before, and had this satisfied smile on her face that made my stomach turn. "Hey babe," she called out cheerfully, like nothing had changed. "How was your day?" "Productive," I said, not looking up from my laptop. I was working, or at least pretending to work, while she fluttered around the apartment. "I'm so glad you're being cool about this," she said, plopping down on the couch next to me. "Most guys would be so insecure and possessive, but you get it. This is about personal growth, not about us." "Absolutely," I replied, still typing. "Personal growth is important." She leaned over and kissed my cheek, and I had to fight every instinct not to pull away. "I'm going out again tonight. There's this new guy, Jake, who's really interesting. He's an artist, very different from the usual corporate types. She was talking about me. I was the usual corporate type. That sounds great, I said. Have fun. She paused, probably expecting more of a reaction. When I didn't give her one, she shrugged and went to get ready. I watched her primp in the bathroom mirror, fixing her hair and applying makeup with extra care for another man, using the bathroom I paid for, getting ready in the apartment I paid for, to go on a date with money from the credit cards I paid for. That night, after she left, I made my final preparations. I transferred everything important to cloud storage, backed up my files, and made sure all my personal documents were secure. Then I started moving Sarah's boxes to Marcus's storage unit. It took 3 trips, but by midnight, every trace of Sarah was gone from the apartment, except for one thing, her key. I left her key on the kitchen counter with a simple note. Since we're keeping things open, I thought you might want your independence. Your belongings are safe. Enjoy exploring yourself. Then I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I turned off my phone and went to bed in complete peace. The next morning, I packed a bag and drove to my parents' cabin about 2 hours outside the city. No cell service, no internet, no distractions. Just me, my thoughts, and the sound of the lake. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I knew Sarah would try to contact me. I knew she'd probably panic when she realized what open relationship actually meant, when both sides played by the same rules. The cabin was exactly what I needed. A place where time moved differently, where the only sounds were birds chirping and water lapping against the dock. I'd brought enough food for a week, some books I'd been meaning to read, and absolutely no way for anyone to reach me. On day 1, I could imagine Sarah coming home to find her key and note. I pictured her confusion turning to panic as she realized all her stuff was gone. I wondered how many times she tried calling my dead phone, how many texts she sent to the void. Day 2, I went fishing. Hadn't done that since I was a kid with my dad. Caught nothing, but it didn't matter. I sat on that dock for hours, watching the sun move across the sky, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Actual peace. No constant texting. No wondering where Sarah was or who she was with. No walking on eggshells around her moods. Day 3 was when the real clarity hit me. I realized I hadn't just been supporting Sarah financially. I'd been supporting her emotionally, socially, even mentally. I was her safe space, her backup plan, her emotional dumping ground. When had I stopped being her boyfriend and started being her unpaid therapist and ATM? I thought about all the times she'd come home from girls' nights and complained about work, about her friends, about everything except us. When had I stopped mattering? When had I become just furniture in my own relationship? Day 4, I chopped wood. Physical labor felt good, therapeutic. Each swing of the axe was like cutting away another piece of the person I'd been. The people pleaser, the doormat, the guy who thought love meant accepting disrespect. Day 5 was when I heard the car engine. I was sitting on the porch, reading and enjoying my morning coffee, when I heard tires on gravel. Through the trees, I could see a red car that definitely didn't belong to any of my family members. My heart rate picked up, but not with excitement, with the calm anticipation of someone who'd been expecting this moment. The car door slammed, and then I heard her voice. David, David, I know you're here. Sarah came storming up the path like a woman possessed. Her hair was a mess. She was wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago, and she looked like she hadn't slept. But what struck me most was her face. I'd never seen her look so desperate. There you are, she practically screamed when she saw me on the porch. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? 5 days, David. 5 days of not knowing if you were dead or alive. I took a slow sip of my coffee and looked at her calmly. Hey Sarah, how's the personal growth going? That stopped her mid-rant. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Personal growth? Are you insane? I've been worried sick. I thought something happened to you. I told you sounds fair, didn't I? You wanted an open relationship on your side, so I opened myself to new experiences. This week has been very enlightening. She climbed the porch steps, and I could see the panic in her eyes more clearly now. This isn't what I meant, and you know it. I meant we could see other people while still being together. We are still together, I said reasonably. You're seeing Jake the artist. I'm seeing myself clearly for the first time in months. Isn't this exactly what you wanted? No, this is abandonment. You just disappeared. You moved all my stuff out like I was some stranger. I set down my coffee cup and really looked at her. Sarah, be honest with me. When you sent that text about wanting an open relationship only on your side, what exactly did you expect me to do? She opened her mouth, then closed it. The answer was written all over her face. She'd expected me to sit at home like a good little boyfriend while she went out and had fun with other guys. She'd expected me to be available whenever she needed validation or comfort or someone to pay her bills. I expected you to talk to me about it, to communicate, not just vanish, like you communicated with me when you made this decision, through a text message while I was at work. For the first time since I'd known her, Sarah looked genuinely speechless. She sat down heavily in the chair across from me, and I could see her trying to process what was happening. David, please, I made a mistake. I realize that now. I was confused and stupid, and I never should have asked for that. Can we just go back to how things were? And that's when I knew she still didn't get it. Go back to how things were? I repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. Sarah, do you even remember how things were? She looked at me with this confused expression. broken, like I was speaking a foreign language. Of course I do. We were happy. We had a good thing going. I leaned forward in my chair, and for the first time in 5 days, I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. But it wasn't sadness anymore. It was anger. Pure, clean anger. Let me tell you how things were, Sarah. I paid your rent. I paid your car payment. I paid for your groceries, your nights out, your shopping trips. I listened to you complain about your job that you barely worked at. I celebrated your small victories like they were my own. I rearranged my schedule around your moods. Her face started to change as I spoke, but I wasn't done. And what did I get in return? A girlfriend who came home later and later each night. A girlfriend who stopped asking about my day but expected me to be fascinated by every detail of hers. A girlfriend who started talking about how relationships were too restrictive while living completely free in an apartment I paid for. David, that's not fair. Fair? I stood up and she actually flinched. Fair is what you asked for, remember? An open relationship, but only on your side. Do you want to know what I realized this week, Sarah? I've been in an open relationship for months. It was just open in the worst possible way. She was staring at me now with wide eyes, like she was seeing me for the first time. And maybe she was. You opened yourself to other possibilities while keeping me as your safety net. You opened yourself to new experiences while I stayed home paying bills. You opened your heart to Jake the artist while mine was apparently just available for maintenance. I never meant it like that, she whispered. But that's exactly what it was like. And you know what the really sad part is? If you had come to me honestly, if you'd said you were feeling trapped or needed something different or even that you'd met someone else, we could have talked about it. But instead, you tried to have your cake and eat it too. I walked to the edge of the porch and looked out at the lake. These 5 days have been the most peaceful I've felt in months. Do you know why? She didn't answer. Because I wasn't constantly wondering if I was enough. I wasn't analyzing every text for hidden meanings. I wasn't trying to figure out why the woman I loved seemed to barely tolerate my existence. When I turned back to look at her, there were tears running down her face, but they looked different from her usual tears. Less manipulative, more genuine. I messed up, she said quietly. I messed up really bad, didn't I? Yeah, you did. Can you forgive me? Can we try again? I'll be different, I promise. I'll appreciate you more. Sarah, my voice was gentle but firm. Do you remember what you said when I agreed to your open relationship? She shook her head, wiping her nose with her sleeve. You said, this is going to be so good for us, I promise. You were excited. Actually excited about the prospect of being with other men while keeping me on standby. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. That wasn't a moment of weakness or confusion. That was you showing me exactly who you are when you think you can get away with it. And I'm grateful for that honesty, even if you didn't mean to give it to me. She was crying harder now. Ugly crying that made her mascara run in black streaks down her cheeks. So that's it? 3 years, and you're just done? I sat back down across from her, close enough to see the panic and genuine regret in her eyes. Sarah, let me ask you something. If I hadn't disappeared, if I'd stayed home like you expected, how long would it have taken before you got bored with Jake and moved on to the next guy? How long before you would have come up with another reason why you needed space to explore? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. We both knew the truth. I spent 3 years trying to be enough for someone who was always looking for something more. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just tired. And I finally understand that the problem was never that I wasn't enough. The problem was that you never learned how to be satisfied with anything good in your life. The words hit her like physical blows. She doubled over slightly, clutching her stomach like she was in pain. What happens now? She asked in a small voice. I looked at this woman I'd loved for 3 years, really looked at her, and felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not love, but a kind of sad peace. Now you learn what an actually open relationship looks like. You're free, Sarah. Completely free. Free to explore, free to grow, free to find yourself without using me as your safety net. But I don't want to be free from you, she sobbed. I want you back. That's when I said the words that changed everything forever. Sarah, you can't want me back because you never really wanted me in the first place. You wanted what I provided. You wanted the security, the stability, the unconditional support. But me, the actual person, you stopped seeing me months ago. The words came out calmer than I felt, but they hit her like a truck. She looked up at me with this expression of complete devastation, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That's not true, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. When's my birthday, Sarah? She blinked, confused by the sudden question. What? My birthday? When is it? It's in. She stopped, her face going pale. Oh God. March 15th. We've been together for 3 years and you forgot my birthday. Do you know what my favorite food is? What I wanted to be when I was a kid? What I'm actually afraid of? What makes me laugh until I can't breathe? Each question was another nail in the coffin of whatever we'd had. She just sat there, tears streaming down her face, unable to answer a single one. But you know what, Sarah? I could answer every single one of those questions about you. I know you hate the sound of people chewing. I know you wanted to be a veterinarian until you realized you couldn't handle putting animals to sleep. I know you're terrified of being alone, which is why you always need someone, whether it's me or Jake or whoever comes next. She was sobbing now, the kind of crying that comes from deep, bone-deep realization. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I believe you are. But sorry doesn't undo 3 years of taking me for granted. Sorry doesn't undo asking for an open relationship like like you were ordering coffee. And sorry definitely doesn't undo the excitement in your voice when I agreed to it. I stood up and walked to the cabin door. Your stuff is in Unit 247 at Eastside Storage. The keys with the front desk. They're expecting you. I paid for the first month. David, please. I'm not doing this to hurt you, Sarah. I'm doing this because I finally learned to respect myself. And part of respecting myself means not accepting treatment that makes me feel worthless. She stood up shakily, like she was about to collapse. What am I supposed to do now? Figure it out. Grow. Learn to be alone with yourself for a while. Maybe next time you'll know the difference between loving someone and using them. She walked to her car like she was in a daze, turning back every few steps like she expected me to call her back, but I didn't. I stood on that porch and watched her drive away, and felt something lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized was there. The next few months were a revelation. I discovered I actually loved living alone. I could eat what I wanted, watch what I wanted, go to bed when I was tired instead of when Sarah decided she was done talking about her day. I started going to the gym again, something I'd stopped doing because Sarah said it was unnecessary and took time away from us. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, guys Sarah had deemed bad influences because they'd noticed how she treated me and weren't shy about saying so. Marcus told me he'd been waiting years for me to wake up. Man, we all saw it. She had you wrapped around her finger, and not in a good way. Work became more enjoyable because I wasn't constantly distracted by relationship drama. I got a promotion within 6 months. Turns out I was actually pretty good at my job when I wasn't spending half my mental energy managing someone else's emotions. I heard through mutual friends that Sarah went through a rough patch after we broke up. Jake the artist apparently wasn't interested in anything serious, which shocked absolutely no one except Sarah. She bounced between a few different guys, never staying with anyone longer than a few weeks. The friends who told me this seemed to expect me to feel vindicated or happy about her struggles, but I didn't. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sadness, just a kind of distant acknowledgement that some people have to learn lessons the hard way. About 8 months later, I was at a coffee shop near my office when I saw her. She looked different, thinner, tired, like life had been wearing her down. She saw me too, and for a moment we just stared at each other across the crowded cafe. Then she walked over. Hi, David. Her voice was softer than I remembered, less confident. Hey, Sarah. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. How are you? She sat down carefully, like she was afraid I might change my mind. I'm okay. Better than I was. How about you? You look good. I'm doing well. Really well, actually. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. She fidgeted with her coffee cup, clearly trying to work up the courage to say something. I've been thinking about what you said that day at the cabin, she finally said. About not really knowing you. You were right. I didn't know your birthday or your favorite anything. I was so focused on myself that I forgot you were a whole person with your own thoughts and feelings. I nodded, but didn't say anything. This felt like something she needed to get out. I've been in therapy, she continued, trying to figure out why I do the things I do, why I always need validation from someone else, why I couldn't just be happy with what we had. That's good, Sarah. I'm glad you're working on yourself. The therapist says I have some attachment issues, fear of commitment mixed with fear of abandonment. I push people away before they can leave me, but I also try to keep them close enough that I don't have to be alone. She laughed bitterly. Pretty messed up, right? We all have issues. The important thing is recognizing them and working on them. She looked at me with something like hope in her eyes. Do you think there's any chance we could try again? I'm different now. I understand what I did wrong. I took a sip of my coffee and really considered the question. Not because I was tempted, that ship had sailed long ago, but because I wanted to give her an honest answer. Sarah, I believe you're working on yourself, and I think that's great, but no, there's no chance for us. Not because I'm angry or holding a grudge, but because I've learned something important about myself too. Her face fell, but she nodded like she'd expected this answer. I learned that I deserve to be with someone who chooses me every day, not someone who sees me as a safety net while they figure out what they really want. I deserve someone who knows my birthday and my fears and what makes me laugh. I deserve someone who's excited to come home to me, not someone who sees me as an obligation. I could be that person now, she said quietly. Maybe you could, but I'm not the same person anymore either. The David you knew, the one who would have taken you back after that coffee shop apology. That guy died the day you sent that text. The person I am now knows his worth, and he won't settle for being someone's second choice ever again. She started crying then, but they were different tears than at the cabin. These seemed more about grief than panic, like she was finally mourning what she'd actually lost, instead of just the comfort and security. I'm sorry, she whispered, for all of it. You deserve so much better than how I treated you. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. She stood up slowly, wiping her eyes. Take care of yourself, David. I hope you find someone who appreciates you the way you deserve. I think I already have, I said with a smile. She looked confused for a moment, then understanding dawned. Yourself, myself. After she left, I sat there for a while, thinking about how much had changed in less than a year. I wasn't the same desperate, people-pleasing guy who would have done anything to keep someone who clearly didn't value him. I'd learned to enjoy my own company, to set boundaries, to recognize red flags before they became relationship-ending disasters. These days, I'm dating someone new, Emma, a fellow engineer who actually laughs at my jokes and remembers my birthday and seems genuinely excited to spend time with me. It's different from what I had with Sarah. It's calmer, more secure, based on mutual respect instead of one-sided dependency. But more importantly, I'm happy alone too. If Emma and I don't work out, I won't fall apart or compromise my values to keep her. I've learned that the right person will appreciate you for who you are, not try to change you into who they want you to be. Looking back, getting that text from Sarah was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to see our relationship clearly for the first time, to recognize patterns I'd been ignoring for years. Her asking for an open relationship, only on her side, wasn't the beginning of our problems. It was just the moment she finally said out loud what had been true for months. Sometimes the worst thing someone can do to you turns out to be exactly what you needed. Sarah thought she was asking for freedom while keeping me as her backup plan. Instead, she gave me the freedom to discover who I was without her. What do you think about this story? Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt more like a provider than a partner? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences. And if you made it this far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. Thanks for listening, and thanks for all your support.